Hey, welcome back. All right, so in this tutorial, we are going to start learning about timelines and how to use them to animate objects in our game. In this case, we're going to start with the cannon. It is a little bit simpler because it has just one little movement, and the blueprints are a little bit smaller as well. There are a few integrated blueprints that move back and forth. And we're going to start out setting it up so that first it's automatic as soon as the game starts to play. And then as we adjust it and change the blueprint, we'll set it up so that it fires only when the player is inside of a volume. So we'll get some interactivity with it as well. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what I'm talking about. Okay, so right here is the demo scene, and these are the cannons. If I hit play, right now I am just outside the volume. If I move inside this volume, the cannons will start to fire. And they're set to fire at a different rate, which is something we can control inside of the game area as we're setting it up on the individual blueprints for each cannon. They fire a projectile, and then the projectile also has an audio and has a system, a Niagara system set up so that when it hits the wall, it explodes over there. All right, so let's take a look at the blueprint real quick. The blueprint in the event graph for the cannon is pretty straightforward. Okay, we're going to end up having to create two different functions that go inside this event graph function. This is the timeline that we're going to use, and this, when we first popped in here, this is the timeline that we'll set up so that it tells the cannon when and how far to move, and then when it fires it, when it calls it, it will move that cannon that far. Okay, we're also going to have to set up a projectile blueprint. So the projectile blueprint will apply damage. It will spawn the systems for the sound and the particles, in this case Niagaras, and then it will destroy it once it hits something. And yeah, so let's go ahead and get everything set up. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to need to get the cannon. And the cannon is a free asset I provided that's on Fab. Now, Fab just recently changed the way that you can actually access your projects. So if you go into your regular Epic, so when you go to Epic to open up your launcher, you'll notice that over here there's the little Fab option here. If you click on that, and then up here in the search, just type in wall cannon, and this wall cannon that I created will pop up. It's the only one with that name in there. A lot of cannons, but this is the only wall cannon. If you still can't find it, you can change the price to free. Okay, once you get the cannon, what you're going to do is you're going to click on it here, and then over here there'll be some previews. So if you click the little play button, it should give you this little ability to kind of move around, check out the cannon. There's also some additional pictures in here. If you scroll down, you can have two different ways of getting it. You can do an export, which will take you to some files and download it. Kind of weird. The easier thing probably to do is just be download it. And it's going to want it to format, so we'll pick GLB. GLB will be the easiest one. We'll do it download only. And then once it's done downloading, then we'll go ahead and pick on these three buttons here. We'll go to Files, and it should take you to where the actual file is downloaded. Notice that it puts it into a bulk cache on your drive, Fab library. And this is the wall cannon right here. There's a little thumbnail of it. This is the file we're going to want to use. You're going to drag and drop that into your project. So if I go here to the tutorial, so now I've got the sample tutorial opened up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my content folder, into my mesh, and I'm going to create a new folder. And I'm just going to call this wall cannon, just in case you download other cannons. And then I'm going to take that file. There it is. I'm going to grab it and drop it into here. And it should pop up with a little pop-up window. And I'm going to say import. Because it was a GLB, it should have everything in it already. So here's the materials, the static mesh, and the textures. So the materials should already be set up. And this was created using Maya, and then I put it into Adobe Substance Painter to texture it, so it's got UVs and all that stuff with it. But inside the static mesh, this is where the cannon will be. And both of these, if you select them both together and then drag and drop it into the scene, it's going to be pretty big because I made it in a different software. And then I'm going to scale this down. Since I have it selected, I'm just going to scale it down to like 0.25, get it a little bit smaller size. And there it is, okay? So now we've got that. Also, additionally, we're going to be using a bunch of other explosions, and we're going to be using, let me go back to my content here. So we're going to be using some different effects. And you can download particles or you can download Niagara. Now, there are two different ways that we put them into the blueprint, and I'll talk about that when we get that far. But if you download some explosions, and so both sound effects and also visual effects. So for example, here, and actually, why don't I just do it this way instead? So when I type in explosions in my content folder, you'll see that I have sound effects come up that I downloaded. And there's also some visual effects. I will give you links to all of these that I've downloaded in the information section down below this video, so that you can click on them and go directly to them to download them if you want. You can also find other ones. The process of putting them in, depending on whether they're a particle or whether they're a Niagara system, will be, I will talk about that again, like I said, and it's pretty much the same for whatever it's going to be, most likely. We will modify the particle system that we're going to use for the cannon firing, and I'll talk about that as we go along. All right? So let's go ahead and get started. This is, I guess before I really get really started, just to give you a heads up, we're going to do this in several different smaller bite-sized tutorials so that each one isn't more than 15 to 20 minutes long. So this is going to take us a few tutorials to get through. All right, so now the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to go to the content folder. I'm going to clear out explosions. I'm going to go to my blueprints. I'm going to go and create a new folder, and I'm going to call this obstacles. And inside of obstacles, I'm going to create a new blueprint class. It's going to be an actor. I'm going to call this BP underscore wall cannon. And then I'm going to double click and open that up. And I'm going to save it. All right, so what we're going to do is select the default scene route. And after we select the default scene route, we're going to go to a content drawer. This will be a little bit faster this way. I'm going to go to content, mesh, go to that wall cannon that we just selected, into the static meshes. I'm going to select both of these. I'm going to click and drag them up into the default scene route. And now we've got this very large cannon up in here. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to take the tube, which is the barrel of the cannon, and drag and drop it onto the base. So now we have the base and the tube is a child of the base. I'm going to select the default scene route, and over here in scale, I'm going to scale it all down to 0.25, because that's probably the place where we're going to start with the cannon in the scene. I'm going to compile it, save it. Now we've got the first two things we need. I'm going to select the tube. I'm going to add an arrow. And I'm going to call this arrow projectile spawn point. Okay, and the projectile spawn point is this right here. And if I drag it forward, it doesn't look like there's anything actually on there, but there is. But the arrow is right now colored red. Over here, I'm going to select this red, and I'm going to pick a default yellow that's already in here, or you can make a yellow. I'm going to say OK. Now, if I take a look at it, it's hard to see, but that yellow, there it is right there. So we're going to rotate this on the Z-axis 90 degrees so it's facing the right direction. Now, it is facing in this direction. The X is facing in the forward direction along with the barrel of the cannon. And I'm going to make this a little bigger so that it's easier to see. Right now, the arrow size is 1. Right here, I'm going to hit 5 and make it big enough to see it. And I'm going to drag it out just a little bit further forward so we have some room for the cannonball to spawn. I'm going to compile it and save it. Okay. now we've got our start on our cannon. So let's jump over to event graph. Right now we're going to delete these two, the begin overlap and the event tick. We don't need those. We're going to keep the event begin play for now, but we are eventually going to change it so that it doesn't fire every time the cannon starts. As soon as we start the game, the cannon starts to fire. If you have 100 cannons, that could be problematic because we may not want them all to fire at the same time constantly. So what we're going to do for now, though, is to test it. We're going to use the event begin play. We're going to drag out from it, and we're going to get a delay. And we're using a delay, which is going to be used to set up our fire rate. Okay, so you notice the cannons, when I was demoing it, had different fire rates. We're going to change the duration, and over here in the variables, we're going to hit that, and we're going to call this fire rate. And I'm going to change it from a Boolean to a float. And then I'm going to open the eye, I'm going to compile it, save it, and I'm going to set the default fire rate for 3 seconds. And then compile it again, save it. Drag the fire rate out, get it, and then connect it up right there. Okay, we've got our start. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use that timeline I was talking about to move the cannon back and forth. So I'm going to drag out from here, give myself a little bit of a lead because we're going to put some stuff in the middle later on. And we're going to type in timeline. And the timeline is this right down here, this little clock, add timeline. That's going to give us this, and we're going to call this cannon firing. Right now it's connected to play. We're going to use the control, hold the control button, get the little hand, click it, and drag it, and drop it down here, play from start. We want to play from start. All right, so now let's double click and open this up. There's nothing in here yet, but we're going to change that real quick. First, we're going to change the fire length from 5 to 0.4. Okay, so that fires pretty quickly. Then we're going to add a track, and we're going to add an event track. The very first thing at the top is going to be an event track. In order to add something here, you need to right-click and add a key to curve float. This time is going to be 0, and the value for this is going to be 0. This event is what's going to make it so that when a cannon fires, after it's done firing, it'll fire again. And in fact, we actually need to give this a name. So if I hit F2, all right, so right click on it. For some reason, it won't let me do it. I'm going to hit rename, and we're going to call this cannon fired. Okay. Now we're going to need to get another track. So we're going to hit the plus button. This time it's going to be a float track right here at the top. We're going to name it before we change off of it so it doesn't make it hard to do it again. And we're going to call this cannon barrel movement. All right. So now we have cannon barrel movement. And inside here, we're going to need to add 3 of those little keys. So we're going to right click. We're going to add our first key. This one is going to start at 0, and the value is going to be 0. So at time 0, value 0. So it should be right here on the 0 line. Then we're going to right click. We're going to add another key. We're going to click on that key, and we're going to change that from 0.1 or whatever it's going to be. So I'm going to make it 0.2 for my time. So that's like right in the middle of the 0.4. And then for the value, I'm going to make this negative 100. I'm going to drop it down. Now it disappeared, right? So I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to click in here. So if I click in here and hit F, it'll frame it. And you see it all the way over here. I'm going to go ahead and add one more. I'm going to right click, add key. Make sure I've got that key selected. I'm going to change the time to 0.4 rather. And the value is going to be 0. So this is going to push it all the way at the end. Now if I hit F again, when I select in there, it should look like this giant V. What we've just done is that in 0.4 of a second, we're going to move the cannon barrel from 0 location to negative 100 and back to 0. Okay, and we're going to compile it and save it. Now I'm going to go back to the event graph. And in the event graph, I need to actually move the cannon, but we can see we've got our cannon fired right here, and we've got the cannon barrel movement, those 2 things that we added inside of this timeline. Now what we need to do is we need to create our first function. So we're going to go over here, and over here where it says functions, we're going to hit plus. And we're going to call this function MoveCannonBarrel. Okay, And now what we're going to do is we're going to actually make this very simple. We're going to grab out from up here the cannon tube. I'm going to drag the cannon tube out here. From here, I'm going to drag out, and we're going to set relative. And we're going to set relative location. And you know, I do this every single time. So let me tell you what I just did here in a second. All right, so we're going to scroll up until we find set relative location, and we want it to be the cannon tube. So set relative location cannon tube, and see what happens. It comes out with its own little mesh. We didn't need to drag the mesh out after all. It's always there. I do that every time. I don't know why I do, but I do. Okay, and then the location. So we actually need to be able to set the location over here. So first, let's select this. We're going to right-click on the new location, and we're going to split that struct pin. So now they're all green. We have X, Y, and Z. This is going to be what's going to move the cannon, but we need to actually have an input. So we go back here to the function. Over here on the right-hand side where the details, we can have inputs and outputs. So an input is going to come out from this side and go this way, and an output would come from something else and go to it if it was an output over here. Okay, so we're going to do an input. I'm going to hit a plus button. We're going to change this from a Boolean to a float, because remember, we were pushing out from our timeline a float, and we're going to call this cannon barrel movement. And we're going to drag this out, and I'm going to plug it into the Y. Okay, so let me explain something real quick. When we look at the viewport, the cannon, if I click on the cannon barrel, the tube, you'll see that the green arrow, which is the Y, is facing in the Y direction on my model here. Now, if you're using the exact model I gave you, it should have popped in here exactly the same as this. If you went and got yourself a different model, or you're doing something different, the direction that your cannon or whatever the object that you want to move is facing is the direction that you want to have it move. So right now, mine's in the Y. If it was facing this way, it would be on the X, right? So if I go back into here, again, X, Y, and Z, I'm moving it on the Y. So make sure that that's what you're paying attention to on yours. And we're going to move it this 100 units at the time when it tells it to move it. So during the timeline at 0.2 into the timeline. So I'm going to go and save this. I'm going to go back to my cannon, to my event graph. There we go. I'm going to drag out the move cannon barrel function and put that here. And this is actually going to be from update. So when it updates, when it says, okay, I got the information, we're going to do it now, and we're going to move it this far. So cannon movement barrel, cannon barrel move to right there. And then we want it to wait that duration, and we want it to do it again. So as soon as it's done, it's going to do it again. So right here where it says cannon fired, I'm going to drag it and drop it over here. Double click on that white line, do this and this. And if I select both of these and hit the Q button, they'll align themselves. See, pretty cool. All right, so now we've got this set up so that it should work. Let's go ahead and compile and save it. Go back to our sandbox, and I'm going to find a wall to stick this on, because that one that's sitting out there is not going to work. It's just a model. So I'm going to go into my blueprints, find my obstacle cannon. I'm going to drag it out. I'm going to rotate it so it's against the wall, just to make it look somewhat decent. Rotate it 90 degrees. Put it up against the wall. Save it. All right, so now if I hit play, the cannon should move based off of whatever the time is, and it should keep moving. So you can change the fire rate right here. So say we wanted to see it go a little faster, and we know that 0.4 is how long it takes to do the full movement. So we shouldn't go below 0.4. And now it kind of looks like it's a machine gun. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. Like I said, I wanted to keep these right around 20 minutes, and we've got this moving already. In the next tutorial, we're going to add in the cannonball, so the projectile, so that we're actually shooting something. And that'll probably take us about 15 to 20 minutes to put together as well. All right, so if you had any issues, please put them down in the comments and ask me any questions. I'll get back to you if I can. Well, I will get back to you. And then also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel so you can follow along with the rest of these. All right? Thanks, and I'll see you next time.